That night started like any other. I got home from work around 6, tossed my keys into the bowl by the door, and grabbed a beer from the fridge. Tuesdays were never eventful. Just one more stepping stone in the week before we coasted into the weekend. Sarah was already in her workout gear when I walked in. Black leggings, that faded gray tank top she always said was lucky, hair tied in a clean ponytail. She was tying her shoes and humming, something upbeat and careless. "Hey, yoga night?" I asked, though I already knew. She nodded without looking up. "Yep, thinking I'll try the new hot yoga class tonight. Supposed to be intense." "Hot yoga?" I smirked. "Sounds like a scam to charge you extra for sweating more." She laughed, but it felt a little off. "Yeah, maybe. Still, figured I'd switch things up." I didn't think much of it then. We'd both been in ruts lately, going through motions. Her switching classes didn't seem like a big deal. She grabbed her mat, slung her gym bag over her shoulder, gave me a quick peck on the cheek, and said, "Love you. Don't wait up if I'm late." They do these weird meditation things afterwards sometimes. I told her I'd probably fall asleep halfway through whatever Netflix show I queued up, and off she went. About 2 hours later, she came back. That's when things shifted. It was subtle, so subtle I probably wouldn't have noticed if something hadn't already been simmering under the surface. She walked in a little slower than usual, her eyes darting around the living room like she was checking for something. "Hey!" I called from the couch, looking up from my laptop. "How was it?" She smiled, that warm, effortless smile of hers that could disarm anyone. "It was good. Brutal but good." She dropped her keys on the counter and headed straight for the fridge, grabbing a bottle of water. That's when I saw it, the bracelet. Thick leather, dark brown, with a polished metal plate embedded into the band. Engraved initials. I couldn't see them clearly at first, but it was the kind of accessory no yoga class required. It stood out immediately. I pointed. "That's new." She paused, then looked down at her wrist like she'd forgotten she was wearing it. "Oh yeah, one of the girls let me borrow it." I forgot mine. That didn't make sense. Borrow a bracelet? From someone at the gym? For yoga? Before I could question it, she turned and gestured to the corner by the ceiling. "Look at that, there's a spider web. I thought we sprayed last month." "Yeah," I said, still staring at her wrist. She pulled the bracelet off and tossed it into the drawer by the sink, like it was nothing. Then she walked over and dropped next to me on the couch. "What are you watching?" It was smooth. Too smooth. She hadn't even broken stride. But something in her tone, calculated casualness, made my stomach tighten. I didn't bring it up again. Instead, I nodded, gave some generic response, and turned the volume up on the TV. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Her hair smelled like shampoo, but under that was another scent, cologne. Musky, bold, and unmistakably not hers. Not mine either. Stuck with me. She went upstairs a little earlier than usual. Said she was exhausted. I stayed on the couch, pretending to care about some documentary until I heard the sound of the bedroom door clicking shut. I muted the TV and sat in the quiet for a long time, staring at the drawer where she'd stuffed the bracelet. Eventually, I got up and pulled it open. There it was, lying atop some old mail and loose batteries. I picked it up. The leather was warm from her skin. The engraving read, "RJ and the cologne?" Strong enough to still cling to it. I don't know why, but I set it back in the drawer like it might explode. I closed it slowly, then leaned against the counter, feeling that strange rush of adrenaline and confusion that hits right before a car crash. You don't know what's happening yet, but your body does. For the next hour, I went over every detail of the evening in my head. Her overly casual tone, the way she changed the subject, the fact that her gym bag hadn't come inside with her. She always brought it in, always threw it by the laundry room door. I checked the driveway. Her car was there. Nothing unusual. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting, that maybe a friend really had lent her a bracelet, though I couldn't imagine a scenario where that made any kind of logical sense. I pulled up her gym schedule online. There was no hot yoga class listed on Tuesdays, not even a general yoga session after 6 p.m. Still, I said nothing. That night in bed, she curled into me like she always did, her body warm, steady breathing. But I was somewhere else. My mind kept circling that bracelet like a hawk. The initials, the smell, the lie. I didn't sleep. Something had shifted. Not just that evening, but in my perception of her. I couldn't name it yet, couldn't point to anything concrete. But my gut had already decided. This wasn't random. This wasn't nothing. I'd been with Sarah for almost 5 years. I knew her. I knew the way she played with her hair when she was nervous, the way she always double-checked the lock at night, the way she tilted her head when she was thinking about what to say next. And that night, I saw her do something new. She became a stranger even just for a second. A version of her that deflected instead of answered. That masked instead of explained. And I couldn't shake the feeling that I just witnessed the tip of something much, much deeper. The next few days blurred together. On the surface, nothing had changed. Sarah was still getting up early, still packing her green smoothie in that metal bottle, still giving me the same peck on the cheek before she left for work. But now I was watching everything. I became hyper-aware of her routines, where she went, what time she left, how long she was gone. The bracelet incident opened a door I didn't even know existed in my mind. And once it was open, I couldn't close it. My brain started dragging in every odd detail from the past few weeks, maybe even months, and stringing them together like clues. I remembered the first time her schedule changed. She said her yoga class had been moved from Thursday to Tuesday evenings. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Why would I? People's routines shift all the time. But now I wondered, had there ever been a change in the class? Or had she just needed a new alibi? Then there were her phone habits. It used to buzz constantly and she'd casually glance at it, sometimes roll her eyes if it was a work email. But now? It was always on silent. I'd hear the buzz against the counter and she wouldn't even look up. Once I noticed her grabbing it and heading into the bathroom during dinner. When I asked, she said it was a coworker, some guy named Neil from accounting who always picked the worst times to talk numbers. The strange thing? She didn't even work in accounting. There was also the work dinner from 2 weeks ago. I remembered it clearly now, like my brain was playing back a movie scene I hadn't realized was important. She'd said it was some casual team meetup, nothing fancy. But she wore heels that night, taller than usual, and a black dress I hadn't seen in years. The dress that usually only came out for special occasions. When I asked her where they were meeting, she said, just somewhere local. Probably the bistro near 9th. But that night, when she was in the shower, I glanced at her phone on the bathroom counter, just curiosity, not suspicion, or so I told myself. She'd left her location services on. The phone said she was at a bar all the way on the east side. Nowhere near 9th. Not even the same zip code. I didn't say anything at the time. I told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe they changed plans last minute and she forgot to mention it. But I remembered the way she flinched when I asked how the dinner went. The laugh that was half a second too long. The way she described one of her coworkers, a woman named Danny, in such oddly specific detail that it felt rehearsed, like she had prepared it. Little things started to stack up like a deck of cards, and the more I paid attention, the more unstable everything looked. One morning I asked her how yoga had gone the night before. She hesitated just for a breath, then smiled and said, "Oh, intense. I thought I was going to faint during downward dog." She giggled like she was reliving the moment. But the problem was, downward dog wasn't part of hot yoga. Not the class she'd supposedly taken. I had looked it up twice. It was a HIIT fusion class, no traditional poses involved. I didn't correct her. I just smiled, nodded, and made a mental note. It became a routine of mine, this quiet detective work. I checked her phone's calendar when she left it unattended. I started taking mental *TS of her outfits before she walked out the door. I even once checked the mileage on her car before and after a quick grocery run. But what got me the most weren't the inconsistencies, it was the tone. The way she talked to me changed. Subtle shifts at first, less eye contact during conversations, a slight edge in her tone when I asked basic questions like I was annoying her just by being curious. Then there were the overcorrections, moments when she'd suddenly be overly affectionate, touchy, playful. She'd bring me coffee at work. She'd text me good luck before a meeting. And I wanted to believe it was sincere. God, I wanted to believe that. But it felt like theater. Like she was playing a version of herself, one that was trying too hard. One Saturday afternoon I mentioned wanting to take a trip, just the two of us, something spontaneous. "We haven't done anything fun in a while," I said, half laughing. "Let's take a long weekend, hit the coast." She blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, yeah, maybe. I'll have to check with work." It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. Mechanical. Like she was already calculating an excuse. I started re-examining the timeline of our life together, pulling it apart like threads from an old sweater. I remembered the trip she canceled last minute because of a family emergency. She said her cousin had fallen sick. I never got any details. No follow-up. When I asked about it later, she brushed it off. Oh, she's fine now. I even started looking through old photos, ones she'd posted on social media. In one, taken a month ago at a supposed girls' night, she was sitting in a bar booth, smiling. But someone had tagged her, another woman, and when I clicked through, I saw a wider *T of the table. There were men there. 3 of them. One of them had his arm draped casually over the back of her chair. Still, I didn't say anything. I told myself I needed more, that I couldn't confront her until I was sure. But inside, the truth was growing louder. Every unanswered question, every vague explanation, every offhand joke that didn't land right, it was all pointing in the same direction. There was someone else. I didn't know who. I didn't know how long. But I knew. Deep down, I think I'd known since the bracelet. Maybe even before that. The way you feel the shift in weather before a storm hits, even when the sky looks clear. I started keeping a journal, something I hadn't done since college. I logged her comings and goings, wrote down snippets of our conversations, things she said that didn't add up. It made me feel like I had control, like I wasn't just drowning in confusion. I reread entries every night, cross-referenced them with her stories. Patterns began to emerge. It was like watching a jigsaw puzzle form, pieces clicking into place that I didn't even know I had. I didn't talk to anyone about it. Not yet. I wasn't ready for the look people would give me, the pity. I wasn't ready to say it out loud. I think my wife is cheating on me. Instead, I planned. Quietly. Carefully. And every time I looked at her, I smiled like nothing was wrong. But inside, I was preparing for the moment when everything would break. It happened on a Wednesday. Funny how something so defining doesn't wait for the weekend or a dramatic backdrop. Just a regular day, clear skies, birds chirping. I came home early because the office HVAC system blew out and management told everyone to go remote until it was fixed. I didn't tell Sarah. I figured I'd surprise her. Maybe we could grab a late lunch or go for a walk. I had this strange, naive hope that something spontaneous might spark the version of us we used to be. The house looked normal from the outside. Her car was parked where it always was. Lights on in the kitchen. Everything quiet. I opened the front door and immediately froze. 2 wine glasses on the kitchen island, both half full. One had lipstick on the rim, the other didn't. A man's jacket hung casually on the back of the dining chair. Black, sleek, not mine. On the floor beneath the coat rack, a pair of unfamiliar shoes. Men's. Sizable. Worn at the heels, but expensive looking. I stared at them like they were a foreign object. For a moment, I just stood there, listening. There was music playing faintly, R&B, a track I didn't recognize. Upstairs, I heard movement. Laughter. A light thud. Then hurried footsteps. A door slammed shut. I didn't move right away. My body was doing that thing it does in car crashes again, flooded with adrenaline, heart hammering, but brain stuck in limbo. My mind registered it all faster than I wanted. Someone else was here. Not just here with my wife. In her home. In her bedroom. I didn't yell. I didn't even make a sound. I walked slowly through the living room, every step on the hardwood floor loud in my own ears. When I reached the stairs, I paused, listening again. Silence. Then I saw it. Through the back window, our backyard came into view, and sprinting across the lawn was a man. Mid-30s, athletic build, shirtless, jeans halfway buttoned, shoes in hand. He leapt over the fence like a teenager sneaking out of a girl's house, disappeared behind the neighbor's shed, and was gone. I stood at the window, staring, mouth dry, hands numb. She hadn't even bothered to check if I was home. A few minutes later, I heard the creak of the stairs. Sarah appeared, her face pale. She froze at the landing when she saw me standing there, still gripping my laptop bag like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. "Oh," she said, as if that one syllable could erase the past 5 minutes. Her voice was flat, but her eyes, those gave her away. They darted to the side, searching for an exit, an excuse, something. "Who was that?" I asked, not moving. "Nobody," she said too quickly. "Then it's not what you think." "Not what I think." I nearly laughed. It's like there's a manual: cheaters follow, minimize, deflect, deny. "Really?" I said quietly. "Because what I think is that I just watched a man climb out of our bed, flee through the backyard, and vault the fence. Should I think something else?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped off the stairs and walked toward the kitchen. Her hands were shaking, trying to look casual as she grabbed the wine glasses. I stopped her. "Leave them." Her hand paused midair. "We're going to talk," I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. "Now." She set the glass down, her fingers trembling slightly. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I pulled out a chair and sat. She stayed standing, arms crossed, like she was bracing for a fight she didn't believe in. Start talking. She hesitated. It's not serious. I blinked. Excuse me. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she continued, voice low. It was just a mistake. I nodded slowly. You've said that before. About the bracelet. The yoga class. The missed dinner. All mistakes. Her jaw tensed. Who is he? She swallowed. His name is Rick. Rick. The same initials from the bracelet, RJ. How long? Not long, she lied. I could see it in the way her eyes flinched. A few weeks. Another lie. She was a better actress than I thought. But not good enough. So you invite him into our house? Into our bed. She looked down. Her silence was more damning than any answer. I stood, suddenly unable to sit still. I paced to the other side of the room, breathing hard. The house felt different now, infected, like every corner had absorbed the betrayal. The kitchen where we once baked on lazy Sundays. The living room couch where we'd curled up watching movies. All of it poisoned. What would have happened if I hadn't come home early? I asked. I don't know, she whispered. I turned to her. Would he have stayed the night? Would you have changed the sheets before I got home? Told me you were at yoga again? She didn't answer. I stared at her, really stared, trying to recognize the woman I married. But she looked like a stranger wearing Sarah's face. Her posture was defensive, like I was the one who owed her an explanation. I want the truth, I said. Not some edited version to protect yourself. The real story. She finally looked at me, and for a moment I thought I saw regret. I didn't plan this, she said. It just happened. He was someone I met at the gym. At first, we just talked. He made me feel noticed. I let that hang in the air. Noticed, I repeated. So what am I? Wallpaper. No, she said, stepping forward. Justin, you have to understand. I don't have to understand anything, I snapped. You're not the victim here. Tears welled in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were genuine or just another mask. She'd already lied so easily. Cried, maybe for herself. I made a mistake, she said again. But I love you. I shook my head. No. You love the idea of me. The stability. The comfort. But love? Love doesn't sneak around. Love doesn't lie. And it sure as hell doesn't bring another man into your husband's bed. She covered her mouth with her hand, sobbing quietly. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't storm out. Instead, I walked past her, up the stairs. In the bedroom, the sheets were disheveled. Our bed. Her perfume and his cologne still clung to the air. The image of him escaping through the yard replayed in my mind on a loop. I grabbed a spare blanket and pillow from the closet and headed to the guest room. She followed me halfway up the stairs but didn't say anything. Didn't try to stop me. Good. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of the betrayal, but because I was already planning what came next. The next morning arrived with the kind of clarity that only follows catastrophe. Sunlight filtered through the guest room blinds like it didn't know the house had been broken the night before. I lay there listening, no movement from downstairs, no clatter of dishes or hum of the espresso machine Sarah usually fired up before anything else. Just silence. An empty, guilty kind. Eventually, I got up. I wasn't in a rush. There was no point. What I had to face now wouldn't change by hurrying. When I walked into the kitchen, she was sitting at the table in a hoodie, sipping from a mug. She didn't look at me. Didn't say a word. I poured my coffee, leaned against the counter, and stared at her for a full minute before speaking. Where's he now? She flinched slightly, still not looking up. I don't know. Will you see him again? I said it's over, she murmured. It ended the moment you came home. Convenient timing. Silence again. No apologies, no begging. Just resignation, like she'd already started emotionally packing up her side of the relationship. Do you even regret it? I asked. That got her to look up. Yes. But the way she said it, flat, rehearsed, didn't convince me. I need space, I said. Don't talk to me unless I talk to you first. I walked away before she could respond. And then, in a move that surprised even me, I went looking, not for her, but for the truth. I remembered her old laptop, the one she stopped using about a year ago when she got her work-issued MacBook. It was tucked in a drawer in the hallway under a stack of tax documents. I dug it out, blew off the dust, and plugged it in. I wasn't even sure it would boot, but it did. No password change. I stared at the screen for a long time, fingers hovering above the trackpad. I'd never snooped before. We didn't do that, we trusted each other. Or at least I trusted her. Not anymore. I opened her email. Nothing new. I clicked into the archives. That's where it began to unravel. There were emails dating back over 8 months, all from the same address, rick.j1991@mail.com. At first, it was harmless, brief exchanges about gym schedules, shared Spotify playlists, articles she thought he'd find funny. But then I scrolled further. There were messages with hotel reservations, room numbers, and logistics. Subject lines like, "Last night face-blowing a kiss," and "Still thinking about Sunday." Photos. Not explicit, at least not all of them, but int asterisk mate. Rick shirtless in a mirror selfie. Sarah in a dress I never saw her wear. Notes that said things like, "I can't stop thinking about the way you touched me," and "He's so predictable. He'll never catch on." One message was particularly brutal. It was a thread, a conversation where she vented about me. "Justin doesn't notice anything. He lives in a fantasy. He thinks taking out the trash and buying flowers twice a year makes him a good husband." Rick had responded, "He sounds like a substitute teacher. Present but forgettable." She laughed in the reply. Literally wrote, "LOL. That's exactly what he is. Beige wallpaper." I don't know what hit harder, the infidelity or how little she thought of me. How she'd reduced me to a placeholder in my own marriage. The damage wasn't physical, it was emotional vandalism. I kept reading. Weeks and weeks of her telling him how she felt trapped. How I was too safe. How she missed the thrill of being wanted, of being reckless. One message even laid out how they coordinated to avoid suspicion. How she saved him in her phone under a fake female name. How she pretended to go to yoga or work dinners when they'd rent a hotel across town. She wasn't just cheating. She was managing a double life. And I was the unwitting extra in a show she was starring in. Eventually, I couldn't read anymore. I closed the laptop and just sat there, staring at it, wondering how I had been this blind, wondering if I even wanted to know more. A few hours later, her phone buzzed on the counter. She was upstairs. I shouldn't have touched it, but I did. It was a notification from a messaging app one didn't recognize. An icon I'd never seen on her home screen. I opened it and it prompted a password. I didn't try to guess. Instead, I Googled the app's name. Encrypted messages. Disappearing texts. She had created a whole system to protect her lie. Later that night, she tried to act normal. She asked if I wanted to watch a movie. Something light, to take our minds off things. I didn't respond. She sat on the far side of the couch, awkward, fidgeting. I ignored her. She didn't apologize. She didn't even acknowledge what I'd found. And that's when it truly hit me. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught. The next morning, Sarah's parents showed up. I wasn't expecting them. I opened the door in sweatpants and a blank stare. Her mom hugged me. Her dad patted my shoulder with that awkward man-to-man sympathy gesture. Sarah came downstairs, eyes red, face makeup-free. They said they wanted to support us. Like we were still a unit. We all sat in the living room. Her mom made tea like this was some sitcom misunderstanding. Then her dad said something that cracked the whole thing wide open. "Well, son," he started. "I know this looks bad now, but Rick's not a terrible guy. He was just caught up. They both were. You've got to understand how complicated these things get over time." I stared at him. "What did you say?" He blinked, realizing too late what he'd revealed. I looked at Sarah. He knew. Her eyes widened. "Dad, stop. How long have they known?" I demanded. Her father stammered. "Look, Justin, we weren't trying to. This has been going on longer than you think, but we were hoping it would fade. We thought she'd come to her senses." "How long?" I snapped. He hesitated, then mumbled, "Almost a year. A year." They'd known for a year. While I was kissing Sarah goodnight, making us dinner, buying her birthday gifts, her family knew she was sneaking off to hotel rooms and planning a future with someone else. And they didn't tell me. Not only was I betrayed by my wife, but the illusion was shared, protected, maintained by her blood. I stood up. I couldn't take it anymore. "I want all of you out of my house," I said, voice steady but cold. "Justin," her mom began. "I'm not discussing this over tea like it's a parking ticket." She broke our marriage. You helped her keep it buried. Sarah was crying again. This time it looked real. Maybe because the web was finally collapsing. They left without much protest. As the door shut behind them, I locked it. I stood there for a while, hands still on the knob, listening to the emptiness of a house that had, for so long, echoed with lies. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt hollow. Like everything that made up the last 5 years had been *ket out of me in a single breath. It wasn't just infidelity. It was character assassination, quiet, methodical, and complete. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't about saving a marriage. It was about salvaging myself. I didn't say a word to Sarah for the rest of that day. I stayed in the guest room answering work emails like nothing had happened, as if I could file away the collapse of my marriage between tasks and deadlines. She stayed out of sight, too, probably hiding in the master bedroom, possibly texting Rick or her parents or whoever else was part of the inner circle that kept me in the dark. The quiet wasn't peaceful, it was the kind that comes before the roof finally caves in. By the next morning, she tried a different tactic. She made breakfast. Pancakes. My favorite. She even added blueberries and that syrup we only use when guests come over. I walked into the kitchen half-dressed, not expecting anything but silence, and there it was, the table set, coffee poured, plates ready. She stood beside it with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Thought we could talk, she said, holding the spatula like a peace offering. I stared at the pancakes. It would have been comical if it weren't so sad. She burned them slightly, just like always. I'm not hungry, I said, and walked past her to the coffee machine. She didn't argue. She just sat down and picked at her own plate in silence, watching me the way someone watches a ticking clock they can't control. That's when her parents returned. They didn't call. Just knocked, 3 soft raps on the door like they were checking in on a neighbor's dog. When I opened it, her mom was holding a small potted plant. Her dad had a folder in hand. Can we come in? Her mom asked gently. I should have said no. Every part of me screamed to slam the door in their faces. But I stepped aside. Sarah appeared a moment later, her eyes lighting up with something like relief. You came back, she said. We needed to talk, her father said. All of us. We gathered in the living room again, same arrangement as the day before, except this time, the air felt different. Like everyone knew something was about to be said that couldn't be taken back. Her mom sat beside her, hands folded tightly in her lap. Her dad stayed standing, pacing a little before he spoke. I know this is difficult, he began, but we've had time to think. And while we don't condone what Sarah did, we want to help you two find a path forward. I tilted my head, incredulous. A path forward? Yes, he said. You two built a life together. That doesn't just disappear. Doesn't disappear? I repeated. She brought another man into her house. Into our bed. Lied to me for a year. And you both helped her cover it. Justin, we didn't help her cover it, her mom interjected quickly. We just didn't say anything. We thought she would end it. We thought it was a phase. A phase, I muttered, laughing bitterly. Cheating on your husband for a year is a phase? Her dad raised his hand, trying to keep things calm. Look, we've all made mistakes in our marriages. You're not blameless either. Excuse me. I snapped, cutting him off. Are you seriously implying this is partially my fault? I'm saying marriage is complicated, he replied, voice sharper now. And sometimes we drift and people make bad choices. You knew, I said. You knew and said nothing. And you think I'm going to sit here and talk reconciliation? His eyes hardened. You're angry. I get that. But if you divorce her, it's going to destroy a lot more than just your relationship. There are financial consequences. Social ones. Your name gets tied to this. I stared at him, stunned. So this is about reputation now? Sarah's voice finally cut in, small and strained. Dad, please stop. No, I said, I still on him. Let him keep going. I want to hear how this ends. Do I just keep pretending for the sake of public image? Take her back so no one has to explain anything uncomfortable at the next family barbecue. Her mom reached for my hand. Justin, we're not excusing anything. We just... No, I said, pulling my hand away. You all lied to me. You let me make plans for our future while you knew she was tearing it down behind my back. Her dad finally sat, but his posture was rigid, defensive. Sarah looked at me then, truly looked. Her face was pale and her voice was shaky but honest. They didn't know everything. Not all of it. They knew about Rick, yes. They thought I'd stopped seeing him after the first few months. And you didn't, I said. No, she whispered. I didn't. And you let them keep believing that? She nodded slowly. So you lied to them too. Her parents exchanged a look and I could see their illusions unraveling too. How long did you think you could keep this up? I asked. Were you just waiting for me to find someone else so you could justify leaving? Or did you think I'd never find out? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her mom started crying softly, whispering Sarah's name over and over like she was trying to conjure the daughter she thought she raised. I don't want to be part of this family circus, I said finally. I don't care what your friends think or what you think is salvageable. This, I gestured between us all, is done. Her dad stood, clearly frustrated now. So that's it? You're walking away. I looked him straight in the eye. No. She walked away. A year ago. I'm just catching up. I left them all sitting there in silence and went upstairs. This time I didn't go to the guest room. I went into the master bedroom, opened the closet, and started pulling out bags. Not mine. Hers. I brought them downstairs and dropped them in the hallway. Her mom gasped. Sarah didn't move. You're not sleeping here tonight, I said. You're kicking her out? Her dad asked, shocked. She made her choice, I replied. Now she gets to live with it. Sarah stood unsteady. Where am I supposed to go? Ask Rick, I said. No one spoke for a long time. Eventually, they gathered her things. Her mom was still crying. Her dad avoided looking at me. Sarah looked hollow, like a shell of who she'd been just days ago. Before she stepped out the door, she turned to me one last time. I never meant to hurt you. I nodded. But you did. And then she was gone. The house felt bigger without her. Colder, quieter, heavier. I didn't move for a while. Just sat on the couch, letting the quiet soak into my bones. I pulled out my phone, opened the folder where I had started saving everything, **, TS, emails, messages. It was time to stop reacting. It was time to act. After Sarah left, something in me hardened. Grief and shock had their turn, but now it was focus. I wasn't going to be another guy quietly licking his wounds while the world spun on like nothing happened. No. She didn't just cheat, she **nized my trust. Used my love as a shield to hide her other life. And I had proof. I gathered everything. The emails, the hotel reservations, the messages where she mocked me to Rick. I even downloaded the app she'd used to communicate with him and pulled a full export of her conversations. It took some hacking, and I'm not proud of that part, but she forfeited her right to privacy the moment she invited another man into our marriage. First, I filed for divorce. Then, I sent an anonymous tip to her HR department. Not about the affair, about how she used company funds for travel labeled training that coincided with her weekend trips with Rick. Expense reports, dates, locations, they all matched. It wasn't about revenge, it was about consequences. Within a week, she was fired. The news came not from her, but from a mutual friend who worked in the same office. Apparently, Sarah had tried to spin the story, said it was a personal dispute, but the documentation I'd provided spoke louder. There were implications beyond just losing her job, but I stayed out of it. Let the system do what it does. She called once, maybe out of desperation, maybe to rage, but I didn't answer. I had nothing left to say. The woman I married was gone. After the dust settled, I moved. Not just out of the house, but away from the city. I found a small lakeside place, quiet, modest, surrounded by trees. It was the kind of silence I used to find unnerving, but now it felt necessary. My phone stopped buzzing. No more just checking in texts from mutual friends. No more legal updates. Just me and time and space. Oddly enough, Harper stayed in my life. She was a coworker, never close, just steady. The type who always noticed when you looked tired and brought you tea instead of coffee. She didn't ask what happened, not directly. She just showed up. Invited me for walks. Shared quiet dinners. No expectations, no pressure. It was the first time in months I didn't feel like someone's project or disappointment. I started running again. At first, I could barely make it a mile without feeling like I'd collapse. But the rhythm of it, the control, the burn, it reminded me I was still here. Still capable. I started cooking too. Not just heating food, but really cooking. Things Sarah never wanted because she was always watching carbs or counting macros. Life became simple. Not empty, just calm. For a while, I thought I'd never be okay again. That betrayal had permanently altered my sense of reality. But now, sitting on the back deck watching the water reflect the sky, I don't feel broken. I feel clear. Sarah was a storm, and for a long time I thought I was caught in it. But the truth is she passed. And I'm still standing.